So now we understand, we're using the API strategy. These are the key takeaways. We need to how it protects information assets exposed via APIs, and how we can prevent the misuse. Solve the challenge of integrating our systems, adapting services, and orchestrating data. Rapidly build APIs from existing enterprises. Centrally manage APIs and its consumptions. Engage, onboard, educate, and manage the partner ecosystem. So, what do you say?
Yeah, I think, Jose, after hearing this session from Alex, I think I now clearly understand why having an API strategy, which not only helps you expose your services to the end users, but which also focuses on having a good security in place and also good integration points for customers, is very critical for our digital enterprise. I think it was really good. Thanks for setting it up.
Thank you, Shamal.
Good luck with your date with Thalaiva.
Yeah, I will engage today. Tomorrow is the day.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks to the SureBank team for setting such a wonderful scenario for us. Well, we'll break for tea, coffee right now, and we exactly have 15 minutes to come back. And on the other side of the break, there are wonderful sessions lined up for you. So we have to come back to this room by 11:45. Thank you.
This is great, Jose. I think for delivering. So I think for delivering Project Unicorn, we now know that we need to follow an agile approach and also combine it with a robust API strategy.
True, Shamal. Now we get into the actual development territory. Considering we are living in an application economy and Project Unicorn is very critical for us, more than being critical, we don't have time to deliver it. Just 2 months. We need to develop a high quality application so that it gets marketed faster and we are still in the competition. So this means we need to have a coordinated approach throughout our application development lifecycle, like the development, deployment, management, starting from planning and beyond.
That is true. So I think if we add agile methodology to the application development cycle, we should be able to develop, test, and deploy in a more effective and reliable manner.
Yes, boss. We can do that. But frankly, Shamal, you know, and I also know that our processes are outdated, don't you think?
Really? Why do you think so?
Sir, so this is what happens. In a real-time scenario, each team builds their piece of code and they want to test it, okay, on the integrated application. Let's say a sprint team.
Sure.
They develop a code for a fund transfer and they want to test it against a core banking application. Now, this means we need to always have an environment which is always available mode for testing purposes, and we don't have so much time and we don't have dedicated systems to keep these systems always available.
What do you mean? I mean, we have invested in infrastructure. What do you mean we don't have enough infrastructure and time?
So that's what is the scenario, sir. We need to start building a lot of instances, lot of integrated applications, always available. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So adding to this, we getting the production quality test data onto the production, is again a big challenge. Do you remember the last time the incident, our corporate customer transactions was impacted?
Absolutely.
My God, it was a nightmare, sir. The actual problem here was the use cases which caused the problem were not tested at all. I managed, to get the situation in control. Customers are okay, but I don't want to go through the CEO. Itni si rehti, sir, wo CEO, gala kaat deti. And for this purpose, I want to have the whole testing process, transformed.
Wow. Yeah, I think point taken. So I think, but once we start releasing more often, I see more challenges over there.
What challenges?
So I think what's going to happen is that, with a lot of Scrum teams writing code in smaller phases and then deploying them together, I see that we'll be having a lot of deliverables ready. And I'm not sure if our release mechanism, has that capability to scale up. So I see a chance for a bottleneck over there. So I remember a term, I think continuous delivery and release management from a session we had yesterday. So do you know how we can achieve true effectiveness of continuous delivery?
I do, sir, I do. But, point taken on all what you said. But to understand more better, I have Pratik Singh from CA Technology. He's the principal consultant, and he can help us through the whole phase.
Well, I love it when you guys are prepared. So let's hear from Pratik.
Yeah, I hope Pratik is prepared.
Thanks, Shamail and Jose, for opening this session for us. So, our next speaker, as they said, is Pratik Singh, Principal Consultant, DevOps, Continuous Delivery, CA Technologies. Pratik Singh is the DevOps advocate and evangelist at CA Technologies. In this role, Pratik has had a consultative approach and helped organizations in the Asia Pacific transform their SDLC and software delivery assembly line. Pratik, being a trusted advisor, has enabled digital transformation through continuous delivery, continuous integration, service virtualization, API testing, and management domains integrate and transform customers' business. So let's hear it for Pratik.
Pleasure to be here, as always. Good morning, everyone. I'm Pratik Singh, and I'll just take this conversation along as to how can we address SureBank's challenges that they've talked about. 3 use cases that they've talked about, and how we can correlate it with the challenges that are happening in your organization as well. Sorry, audible? Okay. Better? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's kind of take a step back and really understand why SureBank is going through so much of disruption. For that matter, and this really correlates to yesterday's talk that Kapil gave, right? Digital transformation that's happening, and it's happening across multiple industries. He mentioned Maruti in India, ICICI Securities, Max, organizations undergoing change, transforming the way they are doing their business. So it becomes imperative for all organizations to transform themselves digitally, and essentially every company becomes what we call as a software company in the application-driven economy. Okay, so let's take a step back and really see what are the challenges faced by SureBank and why digital transformation is such a big challenge for them. So as we see, it depends on the maturity curve where SureBank really is right now. So possibly it's over here, where they feel they have multiple offline touch points, and they feel that they are able to touch every customer, which is not really true. They need to go beyond online banking, talk about loyalty, integrate with so many other providers, the reward points. All of that is something which needs to be addressed as well. Address something like P2P mobile payments. I think Sunil had talked about this as well yesterday evening. So that's really why SureBank is looking at transforming the way they do their business. So before I go forward, do you really think that banking is the only industry that's undergoing some change? Yeah, absolutely. It's not the only industry. Have you all heard of the Dollar Shaving Club? Anyone? Yep. You guys should go out more often. So, but why I want to talk about Dollar Shaving Club is it just got acquired by Unilever. They changed the way people buy shaving blades. So you could go for a subscription for $1 every month. You would get shaving blades, right? Because they wear out very quickly. And they got acquired by Unilever probably just a week back for $1 billion. That's a traditional model being disrupted by online, by e-commerce, and it's being enfolded back by a conventional player, right? In this case, it's Unilever itself. So it's digital transformation is not just for banking. It cuts across all industries, right? Okay, so coming back to the context as to why SureBank really needs to change, because they see that there are a lot of issues that are impacting SureBank. They want to release faster. They have started using the agile methodology, but they realize something like the test, their testing effort is something which is proving to be a major constraint for them. Right? They're unable to release the product early. How many of you all have heard of the book Continuous Delivery, and read it? Okay, not you. So what Continuous Delivery really stresses upon, and it's really a good book. You really should read it. And it essentially follows from what the Agile Manifesto was, right? How fast can I move a product into the hands of my customer? That's really what continuous delivery is all about. And the reason it's important is because you have an idea, you need to take it into your data center, right? Into production. That's where, when it gets business value, that's where you get dollars out of that particular idea. Until then, if it's all over here, it's useless. It's not getting you revenue, okay? So that's really important, and continuous delivery really helps us over there. So this is what SureBank was talking about, and what we are trying to address. And these are the 3 issues that SureBank talked about. They said that we are having challenges setting up environments. They said that they wanted to do testing for the mobile and internet banking, yet core banking is not accessible all the time. That's a major challenge. They want to do a lot of release automation, deployment, reduce the error, reduce the effort that takes to do deployments. That's again a challenge for them. And they do not have the right test data all the time. That's again a very, very major challenge. Now, these are the 3 challenges that SureBank was talking about. But guess what? It cuts across industry verticals. It's not just for banking. It's across industry verticals. And these are the market analyst reports from where we've collected this information. This is something which is common to every one of us. It's common to every other organization, right? Irrespective of whether it's into banking, telecom, if it's even in the government services as well. So what do we do? This is what CA does, actually. We eliminate the barriers between ideas and outcomes. And essentially, this is what continuous delivery is talking all about. How fast can you move an idea into the hands of a user? That's where it gets the most value, right? So we eliminate the barriers between ideas and outcomes. And how do we really do that? So when we look at the current delivery of software, how it happens at the most. So when we start by talking about developers, they start developing code. They have so many other integration points. They need to talk to so many other developers. They need to talk to so many other teams. And all of these are interlinked. Yet you realize that your own schedules, your own deadlines are not progressing forward simply because you're dependent on someone else. So that's a major issue that you have. When it comes to the testing and when it comes to the testers, they have challenges, again, around a whole lot of rework that needs to be done simply because probably the requirements were not translated well enough. That's, again, a major challenge. So the business comes with a thought process, and they say that this is how we think that you should create a particular UI or maybe a form that needs to be there on your banking or your retail website. How does that get translated into what a developer and tester does? It's a major difference, right? So that's, again, something that we try to solve over here. Obviously, in the release side, we are talking about ensuring that there are no defects. You can release more. You can release faster. And why is this very important? And why is release automation deployment important? Because it's not simply because you don't need to do automation for automation's sake. The reason why release deployment and automation are important because it gives you velocity. It means you can fail faster. Right? Again, that's something that came out from the Agile Manifesto as well as Continuous Delivery, the book. If you have to fail fast because you can recover easily. Right? There are lesser number of things now to control. You know easily that there was just one patch that went wrong. That's the reason why my systems have had a downtime, right? Rather than patching, sending a bunch of patches and trying to figure out what went wrong, okay? So that's what we do with release. And fine. Sure.
Just after this test segment,
Yeah.
right, where is your scope for vulnerability assessment and penetration testing?
We are talking about it being a part of the testing services itself, right? It's part of testing, right? Essentially, what is a bug? It's not been tested, right? Yeah, it's as I said. Yeah, we can put it under the VA testing as well, right? So you have UA testing, you have functional, you have vulnerability assessments as well, right? Performance could also be one of those. Okay, something around operations is what my colleague Amit will be talking about in the next segment. Okay, so I'll just be covering all this side, the dev part of what continuous delivery is all about, and how do we really solve it. That's how we solve it with a set of products, a lot of solutions that we have. And we have an integrated stack, which means it integrates with whatever systems that you have in place, whether you're using Jira. If you like to track your defects using Jira, perfectly fine. if you're using Jenkins, if you're trying to go into containerization, into things like Docker, Kubernetes, Apache Mesos, doesn't really matter. We integrate with all of those, right? And if depending on what kind of version control do you do version control, if at all? If at all you do it, then you have Git, you have PVCS, you have Subversion, whole bunch of stuff over there, right? So that's what we do with continuous delivery. So let's get back on solving the problem that SureBank had. And this is the problem that SureBank was talking about, that they do not have access to testing environments. They cannot test enough. They need to create a mobile internet banking app. They need to test against their core banking that's running. Okay, they also need to talk to payment gateways, the fraud risk management system, so many other things. This is a story which is not just in banks, it's across telcos as well, right? When you talk to telcos, they'll say that we need to integrate with so many other players. Payments nowadays, okay, they need to talk to MNP providers, right? The people who do mobile portability. So many other systems in place over here. Billing, all of that is a major problem. So when they need to test against this, they realize that core banking is never up. The testing environments for core banking are never up. So what is the solution to that? One of the solutions that we are talking about is service virtualization. Over here, we are virtualizing all these backends and ensuring you're able to test faster, you're able to go to market faster, right? The reason, the entire essence of why this conversation started with SureBank, the skit that you've seen, because they want to move to market faster. These are technologies that help you do that, help you move to the market faster, and obviously reduce a whole lot of errors while you're doing that as well. Okay, definitely increase performance, ensuring you are zero defect and high quality. It addresses your point, right? Security. Security means essentially there are no defects, right? There is no bug that I can bypass simply because someone forgot to test it enough. Okay, so that's how we address this, and that's really what service virtualization does. It's a technology that helps you rapidly create test environments that replicate behavior of production infrastructure without the need of actually setting up those environments, right? One of our customers, it's a retail player. They needed $23 million was the estimated cost for them to set up a test lab. Guess what? With this technology, they didn't need to set up a test lab. Why? Because when you set up a test lab, you definitely need databases, you need licenses, you need people to manage it, power, network, cooling, so many other things, right? And data center space, which itself is a major cost. So that's something that we've been able to use and help our customers find defects faster, test components earlier, and definitely increase the availability of the testing platform. So we did a research with what we call as Woke, I think. Woke is an analyst, and they realized across industries, when they use service virtualization, the availability of test infrastructure that increases by entirely 1 month. On an average, people said that it takes them 32 days just to set up a test infrastructure. Now with the use of service virtualization, they're talking about reducing it to a single day. 31 days saved. Huge, immense savings over there. Obviously, we can enable agile testing sprints as well, and that's what SureBank was talking about. We've already covered the infrastructure cost and cut overall development cycle by 66%. We have more metrics for this particular customer. We'll address that. Again, the retail space, okay? That's what Auto Traders says as well. So moving ahead, let's see what the second use case of SureBank was. And they did not have test data. They could not test adequately. The test coverage was 10, 15, 20, 25% maybe, not 100%. So what did we do with SureBank, which enabled better testing? We first figure out what kind of data do they have across their databases, across their various systems of record. And we found that this is the kind of data that they have, which is available for testing. Great. But do you know what they don't have? They don't have this. So much of coverage that is absolutely missing. So how do you ensure that your test coverage is touching 100%? Difficult to achieve that, right? And that's really where test data management comes into the picture. Sorry, just to add on to this particular context is again, taking the context of a bank, now there is no system of record, there's no database in any system, in any enterprise which has everything, right? Giving you an example, and I was talking to a couple of you yesterday, and I gave this example as well. If we have a customer, okay, now think about a customer. He's taken a home loan. He's paying the home loan EMI for probably the last 7 years. So all that information is probably in a MS SQL database sitting, which is called the loan database. Obviously he's a customer of that particular bank as well. So he's definitely core banking. He's a user of core banking, which is that database is sitting on Oracle. He's taken a big home loan, so he's a good candidate for the sales guys to go ahead and start selling wealth management services from the bank. That information comes from a wealth management database, which is sitting on your DB2 environment. Now, when I need to test this kind of profile, a complex profile of a person who's really going to fetch me a lot of revenue from a banking perspective, where do I get that data? Bits and pieces are lying across different databases. That's what we are talking about. By building a test mart, we are able to mine the attributes of this data and figure out what is a complex or totally integrated attribute of that particular customer, which is what can be driven, which is going to help us drive our complex test cases much better, which means this is what I get out of it. So now I can test much better. My coverage is much higher. Maybe this is just for banks. If we talk about this, and we did this with Telecom New Zealand in New Zealand, obviously. So over there, we mapped their order-to-cash cycle. Now, order-to-cash is something which cuts across every industry, right? Whether you're doing banks, whether you're doing telcos, aviation is always a problem, right? Order-to-cash, when do you get cash inside your systems? We did this similar mapping in a telecom environment, right? So they had debts, accounts receivable data in one particular database. Their order-to-cash cycle details were in a separate database. Their debt recovery details were in a third database. We mined it, and we were able to ensure that the test coverage now increased. Okay, so that's really how what we can help back. Okay, so that's what we do with test data management, which means you have subsets of proper data, which you can now use to do your testing, even if it's at the individual environments, right? So how do we do it? We do it, where do you really get the data from, right data at the right place and the right time? One of the ways to do it is you pull production data from your production databases, which is not always possible. European Union came out with the GDPR regulations called I think the General Data Protection Regulation, which forbids you from using production data to drive your test cases. So that becomes a major compliance and audit issue. You don't want personal identifiable information driving your test cases. I would not want my PAN card numbers and so many other details floating around simply because someone wants to test out something. Okay, so that's where you mask and you subset your production database, if you have to do that. What's much better is to generate synthetic test data. That's a much better, it's a much better way of doing testing. And that's what the GDPR is driving at, ensuring that you just have synthetic test data to drive your test cases. Okay, so that's, again, a solution that we call test data management that we have. And one of the customers, yes, it's a multinational bank, again, a bank, so we were the only ones who could do masking, subsetting, and test data generation over there. Okay, and 60% increase in test data quality. Again, we have much more metrics in a further slide ahead. Okay, so the third use case that SureBank was talking about was they have release complexities. They have difficulties in releasing their applications. It could be core banking, mobile banking, internet banking, doesn't really matter. Why? Because as all of you who've ever done a release, no one really has a clue what artifacts go into a release, right? We are trying to figure out, we have to go through documents, Word document, we bring someone on a phone call or a conference call, or we try to go through our emails and figure out where do I place my jar file, where do I need to Is it an exploded application? So do I need to deploy a WAR file, or do I need to explode it as an application? All of these are major challenges that we have. Where do I do a deployment? Do I do it in a dev environment, UAT, test? These are again some challenges that we have. That's something which SureBank is also talking about. Okay, so what they want to track is what is going on, how is it being deployed, right? Are we following a standardized process? Now, one of the important reasons for having something like release deployment, release automation is it standardizes the way you interact with all your systems. So whether it's a core banking which is running on WebLogic, WebSphere, Oracle, it doesn't really matter, because all of these interactions with these different technologies is now standardized. It's very, very useful. And once you standardize, that's where you get the velocity of really your releases. Okay? And that's how you address the biggest challenge that is facing SureBank, which is time to market. Okay? That's really how you get velocity. Yes, and can they provision and decommission on demand? And they want to manage a lot of hundreds of distinct applications. I'll tell you which customer does this. Actually, it's not 30, it's gone to almost 40 or 60,000 deployments in a month on their core banking, internet, and Calypso applications. It's a bank. It does 60,000 deployments in a month, obviously across all these environments. Okay, so that's how release automation can address this challenge for SureBank, and also address who and when did a deployment. This is very critical in banks. Why? Because you need audit, you need compliances. Every probably quarterly, there's an audit report that comes out in which they're talking about why did you do a certain deployment, what are the artifacts that are there. We need to really track that. So what's the technology that we are helping them with? Guess what? It's called release automation. Okay, ING is the bank that I was talking about, right? They did a few deployments, and we helped them scale up to 60,000 deployments per month. And remember, it's a bank. It's on their core banking, internet, and Calypso, 3 applications that we are helping them scale with. Reducing the cost of human error. A lot of times I get a question, and it might be in your mind as well. Why not scripting? See, the problem with scripting is it's staggered, right? It always does it in a batch. So scripting has its pros and it has its cons, and it cannot scale. So that's really how we help you scale and how we deliver that reduction in the human error as well. Okay, so that's ING. Now, how do we start on this continuous delivery? So it is, as you can see, it's a journey. You really have to figure out where you are on this maturity curve. Whether you're over here, you're still doing a lot of manual step, and you think it makes sense to go into automation. Or you're already doing a bunch of scripts, but you realize the person who created those scripts in first place does not exist in the organization. He left like 5 years ago. People are afraid to make even a tiny change, even add a semicolon at the end of a bash or a Perl script. Why? Because no one knows how it behaves, especially Perl. Can you make sense of a Perl script? I can't, even after I write it. Okay, so scripting is a major challenge. Where are you? Are you doing automation? Have you started on an agile methodology? Are you able to handle the number of sprints, the number of the releases that are coming up with agile, if you're using agile in your environment? And finally, or are you on your rapid continuous delivery model? I'll come to what rapid really means. But this is what the continuous delivery journey really looks like. Any questions over here? Or any questions in general?
Is this your last slide?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So before you get into questions, I actually wanted to add a couple of things to this. Now, as been talking since last 2 days that we are increasing the pace at which we innovate and then keep delivering products faster to the market, and which means that a lot of smaller components will be getting delivered. So it's, I mean, if you look at it, we are actually moving towards a concept of a factory, right? For a factory, we used to call it that there's to constantly manufacture small things, and then there's a production line, conveyor. So since we are on this, I just wanted to play a small video, which is more relevant and more something which you can relate to. I'm sure all of us would have seen this. So, yeah. So this is just on the lighter side. This is going to be the situation when we move towards software factory where we keep having a lot of products, small components being developed by the development team, and then there's a pressure on delivery and also the testing. So over to you. Yeah.
You. Flip. Okay, thanks. Thanks for bringing that up as well, Jigu, around the software factory. Okay, finally I was promising some metrics and some hard facts around what we've done with customers, and these are the customers that we have: ING, Nordstorm, retail customer. Really strong metrics, how we've helped them reduce their time to market, how we've ensured that the quality has increased, and also ensured that they're able to improve their customer experience, okay, with these three technologies: service virtualization, test data management, and service virtualization. Any questions again over here? No? So finally, what kind of continuous delivery framework would you need? You would need one which can help you really innovate faster, right? Ensure that you have release planning and orchestration. You have agile testing. You can provision data on demand. Definitely an integrated system, ecosystem, and feedback. This becomes very important. And Amit, in the next segment, is also going to talk about feedback mechanisms, the loops, closing the loops. That becomes very, very powerful and very important in a continuous delivery scenario. And finally, you can ensure that you're able to deploy your simulated environments. So that's how you can address your challenges in your software factory, in your software delivery pipeline with continuous delivery, right? Thanks a lot. Any questions till we move? Definitely. Yeah.
I'm going to go up, summarize this.
Right now, or can we take it offline? Yeah, we can take it offline, right? I can definitely show you what the metrics are from that. ING has evangelized their adoption of continuous delivery and release automation, for that matter, a lot. So there are a lot of metrics over there. So I can definitely share a lot of them. Yeah. Right. Correct. Right. So definitely I can show that to you. So they've been a speaker at CA World, so they've shared their journey and they've shared what are the metrics. So these metrics that I was talking about really came from ING themselves, right? Any other question? Yeah.
That's fine. There is a production environment that is also usually physically separate from the staging environment. But what exactly did you mean by the pre-production environment? How do you simulate the production environment, production code in the production environment, or you simulate the production code in the test environment?
So we simulate the behavior of the backend service, right? To give you a simple example, you are trying to create an API and you're exposing that API to the external world, right? But you would not want probably to expose a live API or something, so we virtualize that particular API. Simple, what kind of calls do you make? You might ask for balance inquiry, do I have enough balance? Do I have enough, can I do a fund transfer? These are nothing but calls, right? Writing over XML, writing over SOAP, REST, JSON, whatever the case may be. So we're just mocking the behavior of the backend service over here.
So how do you arrange the mocking? That's what I'm saying. With your customer or?
No, so there are 4 or 5 ways in which we really create those simulated environments. One of the ways is we create a virtual service out of from scratch, really, from the specifications that have been given by the architect. Or it could be we do a recording of the traffic that is between the system under test and the backend system. We can do a recording over there. We can do it from WSDLs if you have RAMLs, WSDL, WADLs, depending on what kind of files you have. Okay. A lot of people give request response pairs, so we can do it through that as well. So it just depends on what access you have at that particular time.
Yeah. Thank you. How do you generate the synthetic test data actually, through tools?
Yeah, it's a product that allows you to generate synthetic test data, figure out what kind of relationships you have between different sets of data, and then create test data.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
I
you.
think it was really
Pleasure.
informative.